Okay, there's two methods to remove the bowls, the cores from the large bowl. We can start with a small bowl and work our way out, or we can start with the large bowl and remove the bowls going toward the smaller size. If we remove the largest bowl first, every time we go to do the next bowl, we're going to have to remount and turn a tendon on the previously done bowl. The way I prefer to do it is I like to start with a small bowl and work my way out to the large bowl. It's much faster, and I don't have to return a tendon on each one. Just keep popping them out and I'm done. So the first thing we'll do is install the number 1 cutter. We'll put the finger on the front side, put the cutter on the back side. We'll position the tool rest base back to our original position. Move over to our mark. Tighten the base to the lathe ways. Whenever possible, try to keep the base at 90 degrees to the bowl. It's just a leverage thing. And we'll tighten that up, being it doesn't take all you have to tighten that. Okay. We'll turn the speed part down. And you notice I'm not turning very fast. It doesn't need to turn 1800 RPMs or 800 RPMs. Just a nice, slow, steady feed will do it. I'm applying a very light pressure on this because it cuts so easy in the wood. If you notice that you're putting an extra amount of pressure on, it's time to sharpen your cutter. We'll do that a little later. Okay, on this first cut, I have gone in to where the cutter goes up the ramp and starts to straighten out. What I'd like to do now is we'll just put the finger into the cut, and that's what acts as the support for us. It's important to keep the finger going into the cut because you don't want to stick this cutter into the cut all the way and have it bend. What you're going to have to do is you have to remember this cutter goes in so easy, you have to shut off once in a while and make sure to keep the finger going in. I always use the tailstock whenever possible, just for safety. We'll clear the chips out. As long as the chips are flowing out of the cutter, we don't have to remove the tool, but you don't want the chips to build up in there. Now as the handle becomes parallel with the face of the bowl, we know we're getting down toward the end of the cut. As we get to a smaller diameter, it will slow down the feed rate that we go in. So, and I'm beginning to push hard in. You can see I'm at the end of the cut. As you begin to pick up resistance, you'll know that you're toward the bottom of your cut. So this would be the core that we got from our first bowl. And you can see that it's a nice core. All we have to do is turn the inside. What I do at home when I'm doing these is I just pop them onto the vacuum chuck and turn out the inside. But if you wanted to, you could put them back on your screw chuck and turn a tendon and do it that way. Either way is good. Now we're ready to remove the second bowl from our set. We'll grab our number 2 knife. First we'll put the finger in the number 2 knife. Loosen the base. Move this out to the correct position. Move the finger in so we are supported only by the round rod. And I can't quite get the tailstock. Yeah, I guess I can. So we'll bring this in, and this is where the Morse taper extender comes in real handy. We can get into the bottom of the bowl now. So we'll put a little pressure on there and lock the tailstock. Give it a spin to make sure that everything's working good. And we're ready to go. I like to keep my hand on the speed pot so I can do minor adjustment throughout the cut. A little bit of vibration, so I'm going to turn the speed down just a little bit. And you can see that sounds much better. Now if I shut this off, you can see that again we're into where the cutter starts to ramp up. So now I know this is a good time to put the finger in. We don't want to go in too far. You want to make sure you keep the finger in the cut. Now we'll turn the finger around. What I did was I just picked up slightly on the cutter, and the weight of the handle will keep it lifted up while I put in the finger. And I'm trying to keep the base at somewhere near a 90-degree angle. I don't want it to be parallel like this. It will give me the most support at this angle. Now what I do is I try to line up the cutter with the finger out on this edge. We don't want an overlap like this. Make sure when you put the finger into the cut that you don't bottom it out and bind it. You want to put it in and back it up just a little bit, maybe 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. Now we'll tighten this up. Now if I start the lathe up right now, what's going to happen is all of the chips are going to build up and they're going to slam down against the bottom of the finger, and I won't be able to pull the cutter in. So I'm going to put it in, just spin it by hand in reverse, put the cutter in until it touches, and with just a very slight pressure, start the lathe. Now again, you can notice that we are in to the depth of this rod, so we know we want to move the cutter in. So pick up on the front of the handle, loosen the rod, slip the cutter in, not the cut of the finger, move it back approximately 1/4 of an inch again, tighten the base, spin it a little bit in reverse, pull it in till it just touches. The further we get in toward the bottom of the cut, the harder it is for the chips to come out, so the more we want to clear. We don't want the chips to build up in here and create a lot of pressure. So, spin it in reverse, put the cutter in. And again, it is time to move the cutter. Things work so easy and so fast with this system, so effortlessly, that you've really got to remember to keep that finger moving in. Things go so easy, that is a common mistake, is to forget to put the finger in. So this, it will come out this time, so we'll do the same thing. Spin it in reverse a little bit, put the cutter in, just a slight pressure. Now as we get down toward the bottom of this cut, we should slow the lathe down. It'll actually cut faster at a slow speed than it will a high speed at this point. And the cutter is parallel with the face of the bowl, so I know I'm pretty close to there. So we can shut it off. I'll move the tailstock out of the way. Take out the number 2. And now we've just got to snap this out. And you can see that we went down to maybe an inch on this, which is fine. Now what we're doing is we are rough turning for a twice turn bowl. If we wanted to do a once turn bowl that was finished green, we could almost double our production here. Instead of turning 1.5 inches thick or 2 inches thick, we could go 3/4 of an inch. And we could get twice as many out. The only difference is we'd be moving the base back and forth half the thickness of the bowl. So every time we went out, we'd be moving it in to play between the two sizes of the cutters. We're ready now to take the third bowl out of this series, and we'll do that. First thing we'll do is to loosen up this portion, and we'll loosen up our back clamp. Grab the number 3 knife with the number 3 finger. Put the number 3 finger in first, and a knife. Adjust the knife so it's over the bar on the finger. We want to grab the board because we've loosened everything up, and this is our number 3 that goes with a number 3 cutter. And just making sure that we are in the right position. Okay, everything looks good there. Tighten up the bolt that holds the jig to the lathe. We can remove the board now. We'll leave it there. Tighten up the bolt for the finger. Bring in the tailstock. It's real important to use the tailstock. You know, it keeps the vibration away. This lathe has very good, very strong, heavy-duty bearings. If you're working on a lathe that has not as good a headstock bearings, you might want to consider using the one-way bowl steady to give you a little bit of additional lateral support on the edge. Okay, so we're ready to core this out. Let's go. And we'll move the finger in for this first one. Again, lift up on the tool so we can freely move around the cutter. Now keeping this at 90 degrees. Bring it all the way in, back it up maybe 1/4 of an inch. Okay, now on this one I'm not going to bring it in just to show you what happens. You can see that we have filled up with chips. So we're not going to be able to cut. So what I'm going to do is just pull this in reverse. Now we can cut. Never force your way through the cut. If you've got a chip in there, don't pull on the handle hard and try to break the chip out. Now as we get in here, this is a very large bowl. We're going to be removing quite a bit of stock at a time. So you want to make sure that you keep clearing the chips. Time to move the finger in again. Make sure that before you start cutting that your cutter is pushed down again to the finger. Okay, I've got some chips that have built up, so I'm going to put it in reverse. Okay, we're getting real close to the bottom of the bowl. Slow the speed down a little bit. Make sure I clear the chips out good. Now if I look at where this centerpiece is, it is right at center. So I know if the tool handle is parallel, it'll leave me a little over 1.5 inch snap. If it was behind center, it would be a smaller snap. If it was this side of center, it would be a larger snap. We can snap up to 4 inches easily with this. So that's something you'll get used to as you go. And we're well within the limit of the snap, so let's pull the tailstock back. Okay, now it's time to snap out this bowl from the larger bowl. Although this bowl will be able to snap out with a small wrench, sometimes if you're going to do the large 4-inch snap, you should know how to do that. So let me show you how to do that. What we'll do is we'll bring the tool rest over, and we'll bring it up to the side of the bowl. If we orientate the tree with the pith going straight up and down and shoot somewhere at a 45, we'll bring the tool rest just up against the side of the bowl. Bring a crowbar in, and we'll play with it just a little bit to see if it feels like it's going to snap, and do it that way. But before I snap that, let me move the coring tool out of the way. Okay, now we're ready for the snap. You can see we probably had around a 2.5-inch snap there, which is good. So now the bowls are ready to go to be dried. Several different ways to dry the bowls: air dry, kiln dry. If I was to air dry these bowls, what I would do would be to put them in a paper bag and put them somewhere where there isn't a lot of air movement, and just let them set until they dry. And the next step would be to mount the bowl back on the lathe, and the easiest way to do that